just tuning in, you are listening to 105.3 FM out of Mississippi and 107.7 FM out of the beautiful city of New Orleans. And this is the Angel Rock. Hang tight, guys. I'm just getting... let me get TikTok going here, and then I will finish with my usual spiel. I got a good one for you guys tonight. You guys are going to love John. We're going to do all our housekeeping first, and then I will read his bio, and then away we get going. Let's hope it behaves itself tonight. It looks like it did. I got one more button to push, you guys, and then we're all finished. Open live monitor. All these buttons to push, I'm telling you. Anyways, welcome everybody. If you haven't been to the show before, like I said, this is the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. A little bit about myself. I'm a Canadian psychic medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, as well as registered nurse. I am also well-versed in near-death experiences, having had one as a toddler myself and studied them professionally and personally for over 40 years. I'm also an animal communicator, and I'm extremely well-versed in the paranormal. I always say, didn't go looking for it, it found me. We shared our story on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivor Season 4, Episode 9, called Demonic Hauntings. You can find that on, I believe, on YouTube. You can find it on, I think, Netflix, a whole bunch of places, so it's out there. Hi, guys. I see you there. Hang on. As soon as we get all the housekeeping out of the way, we're going to say hi to everybody. So if you guys like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell all your friends and family. I believe we're almost up to 40 hosts live on the network, and we stream multiple shows live daily, 7 days a week. When we're not streaming live, the archive server kicks into the past 25 plus years this network's been around and randomly streams shows around the clock. It's not all just UFO and paranormal. There really is something for everybody here. I always have my checklist by me just in case I forget here. So what else do I want to say? So 80% of our audience, we do broadcast to every country in the world with this network. How cool is that? But you're audio only. So they're only listening. So I always say, if you can't see the show, you can't join the conversation. And we always have such a great audience that joins us here in the chat. So I'm going to have to go through a few things here to tell you how to get and join the chat, but we'd love to have you join in if you got questions or comments. So I am streaming to Lorilei Potvin on Facebook, as well as the Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin on YouTube, the network's now main YouTube channel, which is UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. We're streaming to Twitch under UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio. We're streaming to Instagram on the Angel Rock. Just so you guys know, if you start watching over there and it kicks out, sometimes it kicks out after an hour. So if you find that we're talking mid-sentence and all of a sudden it just cuts off, you can always head over to YouTube or Facebook and still join the conversation. Your comments here, as well as on my TikTok account where we are streaming live under the Angel Rock, I can't see your comments. So while John and I are chatting, I'm going to be going through 3 pages, checking back and forth for comments. If you guys want to watch us on TV, you can. You know what else I forgot to mention? Let me back that up. We are also streaming to my guest, John Fraser's Facebook channel. Let me make sure. Yeah, he's live on there, John Fraser. So Fraser. See, you told me this before, John. And what did I say? Fraser. And I got relatives with the same last name. Also,
I don't mind being named after a world famous boxer.
I know, but I told you I have relatives with that last name. I should know how to say it. We are also streaming to my Rumble channel, which is Mystique 1508. And as I always tell you guys, it's not a stripper name. It is actually an older username that I've been using, and it's from X-Men. And the last place we're streaming is to our Roku channel. So if you want to watch us on TV, that's how you can. The network has its own channel. So you're going to go to the Roku, sign into Roku. You're going to go to the channel store. You're going to type in UFO space P as in paranormal. There's a drop down list. We're about the 3rd or 4th one down. You're looking for UFO space paranormal and United Public Radio, and that's how you can watch us. I think I remembered everything. Let me just read your bio here too that I have. Oh, I got all these. Never fails. Either people always message me, John, when I'm live, and I guess I should be happy that people do. But that's what they'll message me. You know, all this stuff is coming up right now. So I have a bit of a longer bio for you, but you guys are going to love John. I know you will. He's going to be talking about things that are right up your alley and mine. John Fraser is currently a member of the Spontaneous Cases Committee and the Council of the Society for psychical, psychical. Psychical Research. He was previously vice chair of investigations at the Ghost Club, founded in 1862, and joined the Association for the Scientific Study of Boy, you pick great words, and I can usually say them.
You should wait. You should wait until you see the length of my book titles. They're even worse.
I know, anomalous. See, I got it. Phenomena in its founding year. He has written articles for the Fortean Times and other magazines. He has appeared on radio, television in the UK, and television in Japan. Amongst his other related interests, he also helped publicize the Second World Dracula Congress. Oh, I can't wait to talk about some of that stuff in Romania, and has helped promote the specialised Dracula tourist market in this region. In 2015, he conducted in-depth research into the well-known and controversial poltergeist-style phenomena at quote-unquote the Cage, a former jail in St Osyth Essex. I think I've heard of the Cage before. Sorry, I lost my page here. His book, Poltergeist, A New Investigation into Destructive Haunting, was published in 2020, with 6 books, and his new book that came out November 1st, 2024, that's one we're going to be talking about tonight, Paranormal Perspectives, One Big Box of Paranormal Tricks, with a question mark. Welcome, John. I'm so glad to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
You gave me... Oh, go ahead.
I just said it's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad to have you here because, boy, oh boy, I figured it might have been you that you went to my website, and I'm actually going to be putting out my first course I'm teaching. And the website I don't use because it'd be better to be under a domain name. And I used to have my show really late, like at 11 p.m. on this network, Eastern Standard Time. So I wouldn't do that to somebody because you're over in the UK. I would have pre-recorded the show. I wouldn't ask you to stay up till, well, gosh, that would have been 3 to 5 a.m. in the morning your time. But I get a notification when somebody visits. They don't tell me who it is. They just mention the location. I thought, I wonder if that's my guest for Monday night. And I think it was. No, I wouldn't. The only person that did that, I had somebody from Egypt on, and he actually, I think he went to bed and he got up for 3 a.m. He chose to come on live. So I thought, oh my gosh, what a trooper, because a lot of people would not do that.
It would be, I couldn't get up at 2 a.m. I'm a night person. I could probably do 1 to 3, but 3 to 5, well, we might talk about poltergeist, but we'll be talking about poltergeist and zombies if we actually did it at that time. So this is perfect. This is also the 1 week of the year where your 6 p.m. is my 10 p.m. because your clocks, I think, have shifted and ours haven't. So it's just meant to be.
Well, I'm used to 5 hours because we have people from all over. Let's say hi to everybody first. I'll check Instagram. Let's see. Nope, nobody popped in yet. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We've got a bunch of people popping in over on TikTok. So feel free to, we're going to be talking about vampires and poltergeists and the paranormal. So feel free to leave some comments. We have Connie Martin and Sun Dragon, who I call by his muggle name, Kevin. So he says, hi, Lorilei. They're all saying hi to one another. He also said, hi, John. We've got, speaking of the UK, we've got Julia Evans. I know she's over in the UK and it's later. So thank you for joining us later in the evening, Julia.
Hello, Julia.
We have Julie Jean Bassett. I always give Julie a huge shout out. You know what? I took her animal communication course. She has helped me with some of my own pets. She is so incredible when it comes to working with animals with, any issues whatsoever. And she's also a pet medium and a human medium too, as well. She's also a shamanic practitioner. And I had a session with her about 6 months ago that was so life-changing, and planning on booking one in the future. So anybody looking for some help with their animals or some inner healing, please check Julie out at juliejeanbassett.com. She was just, was it last week, Julie, or the week, Monday before? I can't remember. You were on. So let's see. Who else have we got here? I went too far. Yeah, everybody just saying hi to one another. They usually drift in because sometimes with producing your own show and with it being a live show, sometimes we get started right on time. sometimes a little bit later, depending on if there's audio issues, but we were lucky we got started on time. Gosh, John, where to start with you? I think, you know what, I'm going to start at the beginning. How did you find out? Well, not find out, but what got you started in the paranormal?
Probably I did not have any sort of mind-blowing experiences that sort of triggered my interest. I used to watch lots of horror films when I was young and ask my parents to stay up a little bit late. And then one day I saw a documentary on TV, and I was actually kind of mind blown that people actually took the subject seriously. Because up until then, I just thought it was, horror films and so on. And I was so fascinated, I basically rented out the entire section of the local library on factual paranormal, and have been hooked ever since. As soon as I could, I joined let's see if I can do it, the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena, better known as ASAP for obvious reasons, and later on joined the Ghost Club and the SPR.
Mm-hmm. And you've done some TV, it sounds like, too. But you said something interesting to me before we went live. You said, let me close this cupboard. We don't need any poltergeist activity. So with that being said, and if you don't want to answer, I'm not going to ask anything personal, but are you finding that you have activity in the home that you live? Or is it because you study this field because I know for myself that now that they know who we are, like from our previous home, I don't have the same level of activity, but I still have things that pop in or passersby or what have you. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, well, I think probably very much like all skills at about probably about 5% of the population tend to get active paranormal activity. I am not one of the 5%. I'm probably about as psychic as a brick, and that might not be fair to the average brick. Now,
okay.
The serious point being, no, I've had absolutely nothing of any significance happen to myself certainly in my homes. I've had one or two strange things happen on investigations. Probably the best of which was when I was investigating a haunted RAF Lincoln bomber at a aircraft museum called RAF Cosworth in the Midlands in the UK. It was actually an investigation organised by a very well-known ghost hunter at the time called Peter Underwood. What fascinated me is 3 separate things happened to 3 separate people at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Which is, I mean, I come from this as, very open-minded because nothing's happened to me myself. I'd probably feel differently if it had. But anyway, Peter thought he saw a shadowy figure of a pilot.
Okay.
At the same time, one of the other people in the group seemed to kind of get pushed back and feel as if electricity was going through him. At which point we kind of alerted and turned the lights on, and the fire exits appeared to be open when I'm personally 95% sure they were shut before. So you had 3 separate things happening. The only one I observed was the fire exits. But that's the sort of thing that fascinates me, trying to find connection between events rather than just one-off things. If Peter had thought he'd seen a shadowy figure at 2 a.m. in the morning, in the dark, to be fair, there's all kinds of psychological explanations for that. But if you put the 3 together, you've actually got reasonably powerful evidence of some kind of paranormal activity. And bearing in mind that not a lot happens to me, I'm far more interested in trying to make sense of other people's experiences, though I do still spend the night in the occasional haunted house.
So you've never really had anything happen to you, then, I'm taking is what you're saying. It just
Nothing that I could absolutely go beyond the boggle threshold of not being able to possibly explain away. I mean, I'm even fairly sure that wonky picture behind me may have been wonky when we first came on the show.
Oh no! I didn't even record. We weren't recording before for me even to check to see if it was.
I've just noticed it's actually. Apologies for your listeners rather than your viewers, but I have 3 pictures up behind me which are a touch esoterical. One is actually one of my book covers, and the book cover appears to be tilting a little bit. We'll have to keep an eye on it. But on a serious matter, no, I haven't, and I believe it is a minority of people, albeit a large minority, that do have certainly the thick end of the paranormal, and in some ways it's probably places me well to investigate because I can go in with an open mind.
Well, mind you, well, first of all, I do want to say hi because Gavin Lee Davies, who connected us with, he's got books and sends all these amazing authors like yourself to share with my audience. He says 2 amazing people. We appreciate.
Hello, Gavin.
Love Gavin. Known Gavin for years. I love him. So, okay, now, you never know. And my audience, we got most of our regulars. Not everybody's here. They pop in sometimes a little later, what have you. But I can tell you, there are a lot of regular people. And we have had AVPs on the show live. I have, and then I was helping produce a good friend of mine that's on the network. She is an incredible medium. Her name's Carrie Lynn Chalhorn, and she has Spirit Switchboard on Friday nights. And that's what it was. I was helping her produce when she first started on the network. And yeah, Julie Jean Bassett saying yes, because people have heard them. But with Carrie Lynn, gosh, I wish I could remember his name. Oh, he's older gentleman, well known in the paranormal. I think he even had a movie role as one of the horror characters in one of the horror movies. I don't watch horror movies, but I had my headphones in, and I love to work with resin and create, and that's how I connect, I say, with collectively spirit. So I had my headphones in, and I was looking down doing something maybe a meter away for people that are in Imperial, maybe about 3 feet away. And all of a sudden, it sounded like somebody was sucking something up with a straw. And I thought, who's doing that? And I looked over, and Carrie Lynn had just asked. I have a clip of it. I can send it because with her permission, it was live anyways. People heard it. But I look up and I see that nobody is drinking with a straw. And Carrie Lynn had just asked her guest, have you ever had an attachment before? Because he's also a paranormal investigator. And that's when the noise came through. It sounded like somebody was, like I say, when you're a little child and you had maybe your milk or chocolate milk or something, and you had a straw and you were sucking it up and it's right at the bottom. Then it almost sounded a little bit like a growl. And so then I knew when I looked up and I saw nobody's drinking anything. This is live. So I remembered, I'm getting goosebumps as I'm thinking of it. I marked the time in the video and I went back, and sure enough, it was in there. And we've had them on this show too. I do 2 shows on the network. So, because I find that fascinating that you say you haven't had something strange happen. So what made you decide to write these books? Like, I'm dying to hear what your thoughts are. If I understood you properly, you said that you take a look at other people's experiences. Is that part of what your book is about? Or please tell us more about that.
Well, if we go back to the poltergeist book, I mean, we've got lots of random experiences, paranormal, poltergeist, what have you, all over the world. But I thought it would be quite good to try and look at connections between all the various cases.
Okay.
I mean, let's start with attachments and what have you. I mean, we probably come from two different possible perspectives.
Maybe not.
Or maybe not. That's why I said possibly. I tend to think that there may a lot, if not all of the paranormal, may be from something within us. Let me explain a little bit more. If one goes through the whole range of poltergeist cases, one has a lot of object moving, very occasionally fire starting, thankfully not too much. Lots of communicative knockings on walls, doors opening for no reason. But when you actually look at trying to find an intelligent entity, the average poltergeist tends to behave like, well, a 2-year-old spoilt child, as if it's something possibly something out of one's subconscious. I'll give you an example. One of my colleagues in the SPR, a chap called Barry Colvin, in the 1970s, did a very good bit of research into something that became known as the Andover poltergeist. Basically, all the normal stuff, things being thrown around. It surrounded a 11-year-old girl, which by itself is not exceptional.
I think it can be. I'm dying to hear what you have to say.
It can be, but we'll come to that because I've got my own little theory about that as well. But anyway, they had some mediums around that said there was bones in the back garden or something, which I must admit, ever since the Fox sisters, always seems to be what some mediums come out with. But there was no evidence of that whatsoever. But this entity, whatever, started to communicate. Very long-winded, tapped out letters, kept tapping the wall until he got to the right letter in the alphabet and so on. So it was quite hard work. Now, did the entity explain who it was? No. The entity predicted next week's soccer results. The girl in question was a football fan. The entity predicted next week's soccer results quite badly, certainly not above chance. And I kind of think, be it a spirit, dare I say a demon, and I don't like that term, or what have you, I would rather hope, if it was an afterlife spirit especially, you'd have something more profound to say than next week's soccer results.
Absolutely.
Which, and there's lots of cases like that. I mean, I suspect most of your listeners are aware of the Enfield case.
I've heard of it.
And
yes.
I know a guy called Chris French, who is an out-and-out skeptic, but a kind of reasonable one that you can have a decent conversation with. And he made a very good point about the Enfield case, which it basically, for those who aren't aware, involved 2 girls in the council house. All the normal poltergeist phenomena went on for about 18 months and was thoroughly investigated by Guy Playfair and Maurice Bruce, also of the SPR. Quick society plug. Now, the girl was possessed by an elderly man who apparently, possessed in inverted commas, who apparently did die in the house. That much was shown. But when the elderly man possessed the girl with a deep, gruff voice, Chris French pointed out all the elderly man wanted to do is to talk about menstruation. And the
That's
girl was
weird.
it is, but it wouldn't be so weird for a shy 13-year-old girl's subconscious to want to ask questions about menstruation.
Mm-hmm.
And probably a bit too shy to ask, as I suspect lots of lower teenage girls are. So I kind of come from the working, and it's only a working hypothesis, that we have a lot of cases which seem to have very strong evidence, but I'm not sure if all of it is strong evidence of an afterlife
Mm-hmm.
entity. Nevertheless, it makes it absolutely fascinating, whatever side of the fence you go down on.
I can't disagree with you. I'm just going to say hi. We've got Lisa Martinello. She says, I'm listening. Michelle Wilfong. Hi, everyone. Just dropped in to say hi at the emergency room with my nephew. So I hope your nephew is okay. Michelle, thank you for popping in. I can't disagree with you because, okay, the partner I live with, actually, Gavin's met him before. He used to be on the network a few years ago. He is the world's biggest skeptic. And I always say to him, very sarcastically, paranormal activity only happens when it happens to you. Because it doesn't matter what I say. Don't get me wrong, because my second show that I do with my co-host, David Hansel, who is a medium, he doesn't necessarily subscribe to negative type entities. And sometimes we don't see eye to eye, and that's okay. Because we can have an adult conversation. And a lot of times that, because we'll show clips of activity, and right away Dave will say, that's fake. Okay, Dave, I got questions. I have.
Don't get me wrong. First of all, I wasn't saying those cases were faked.
Oh no!
In any way,
no.
I was simply saying that that there may be a as yet not understood power within us.
No. I agree. I'm getting there. I promise.
Okay,
please don't anybody else think too. I'm not saying that you said it was fake. Where I'm going with David, though, I always say to him, okay, take the clip for what it is, because we got to remember there's deep fakes, there's AI, there's what, right? I got questions. I got tons of them. Where I'm going with this is, I think even if we've experienced paranormal activity, we must be able to be skeptical to some point to debunk. We can't just jump to everything like on TV. It's paranormal. Everything's a demon. With the little girl you were talking about, I think she was 11, the first one you were speaking of. I have seen this myself, especially with women, like young females, usually at that tween to very early teenage. I mean, don't get me wrong, all teenagers have a lot of hormones going through their bodies, but especially with young women, and if they've already started their menstruation, our hormones are all over the place at that age. Our emotions are so powerful at that age as well, right? I have seen things where I believe that, say, a young girl is having a major upset in her life, or is when she's angry, she's really angry, and then there's creepy weird stuff moving around at her house. I can't always say that could not possibly be telekinesis, is where I'm going with this. And I've experienced extreme paranormal activity, but what I did, and maybe it's the scientist, I'm not a scientist, but I have a Bachelor of Science in nursing. And so to me, I knew that if I didn't document some of these things, nobody was ever going to believe me, because if I hadn't lived through it, I wouldn't have believed it myself. And I still don't have the answers to what it is. All of it. Like, was this the man was sitting in my tree? I told you about my dream, for anybody that's listening, or maybe for the first time had this dream 17 years ago. There was a man sitting in the tree in my front yard and trying to get me to agree to follow him, basically making the story very short. It's not podcast or radio friendly what I told him in the dream to do and where to go. He kept saying, "Who are you?" And then, no uncertain terms would I follow you. He then told me he was a demon, told me his name, told me how to spell it. Again, I told him where to go, and then told me his animal form. Now, to me, I'm still not even convinced that was a demon. Like, I don't know what that thing was. And then I've had people come
what is a demon?
That's where we're at. My thoughts are, Okay, even with giving you the results of and I don't know everything. I tell people I don't know everything, but I do believe that there are different timelines, different dimensions. If everything is energy, one of the laws of energy is we can neither create nor destroy it, but it can be moved from one place to another. We break everything down, if we can break it down to that, right? How do we know, like, where do tulpas come from, for example? Right? You take the legend of the Thin Man from creepypasta. That's what that was, a story. And then, all of a sudden now, and this was years before we got the deep fakes and the AIs, there was pictures showing up and people having experiences and so on, or egregores, right? So how does this all happen? Is it just energy? I have so many questions.
Let's try it a different way. I mean, what I tried to do in my poltergeist book is,
Kathy.
first of all, make the possibly controversial statement that we always separate ghosts and poltergeists.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at a number of ghost stories, and a lot of them, on further investigation, tend to turn to dust, to be historical, romantic things. Queen Anne Boleyn's apparently supposed to haunt about 7 different places at once. I mean, she probably doesn't. And so I make the statement that ghosts are, in effect, a side effect of poltergeists. If you look at any sort of modern well-documented haunting,
Mm-hmm.
you don't really have much that has just an apparition without much going with it. The ones you do are the legends. There's some wonderful legends. There's a old house in called Ixham that's supposed to be haunted by a lady called Dorothy Selby, who was bricked up during the gunpowder plot for betraying the Catholics. And it's just an absolute fairy tale, because she did exist, but she's actually buried in the church nearby, and she died 40 years after the gunpowder plot. So a lot of these wonderful ghost stories just turned to dust. The ones that really seem to hold water are the poltergeist cases that might have apparitions added. So I kind of said to myself, whatever they are, poltergeists and ghosts are probably different symptoms of the same paranormal power.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my newer book, I kind of take it a little bit further. Nothing definitive, just a way of thinking through your own belief system and seeing if that makes sense or not.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got tulpas, you mentioned them.
Mm-hmm.
How different are tulpas from the Canadian Philip experiment, in which they invented a non-existent poltergeist based on an invented cavalier who definitely never existed, but the phenomena still existed.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone wants to Google the Philip case, it's a fascinating one. In effect, they invented their own tulpa, so you've got a similarity there.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, obviously, black magic, demonology, ghosts, poltergeists. And if you want to take it even further, shamanism, occultism, and so on. Mm-hmm. But when you actually look at the phenomena, they're all really the same type of phenomena. So I'm kind of asked my question in my newer book, are we putting all the paranormal into our own cultural boxes when we should be really trying to identify one power, whether it's external or internal, we can set aside for now. But are we not just talking in our own terminology and confusing it? I mean, it's difficult enough to kind of prove one power to skeptics, but here we all are trying to prove, that there's about 13 different types of paranormal. I'll give you weird, a very ad hoc, one-off example. I mean, Aleister Crowley.
Yes.
He's kind of off the scale of spiritualism. You know, he probably wouldn't think he has much in common with spiritualism, or so on. Basically, got himself into a trance and believed he was speaking to his guardian angel Aos, and automatically wrote his book of the law in, I think, he claims at least 2 hours. We've got a famous medium, Rosemary Brown, who claimed to be talking to Brahms and Liszt and various other dead composers, and came out with some very passable concertos, which I believe music experts thought were probably very good copies of the styles, but possibly not, totally original works. Are not Rosemary Brown and Aleister Crowley, even though they're in totally different camps, at the very least tuning into the same thing through different means?
Yeah. So I think that's the best way I've been able to make sense of this is, if we take everything on this planet is energy, some form of energy, right? And that's why I looked at this, and what I've said many times on the different shows I've done is, I believe as human beings, we are so incredibly powerful, not from an egotistical perspective, but we have never been able, or have been taught, most of us, what our potential is. I believe that once upon a time ago, we probably did communicate telepathically. I think we were probably very telekinetic. I think there's many things we could do, because I really believe that our thoughts, our words, and our emotions are some of the most powerful things that we possess as human beings. When you look at fear, for example, one of the best ways to control a human being is with fear, because when you're in that state of mind, and even science will show this, when you're in a place of fear, it's pretty hard to be able to look at anything else, right? And then you bring in religious dogma, and I'm not crapping on anybody's religion here for anybody. I always say, whatever vehicle in the road you take to hopefully help you to become a better person and move forward in a place of loving kindness to others, good for you. But what people don't realize, and I haven't studied every religion, but I've certainly looked at quite a few, and I'm a retired Roman Catholic, I'll call myself. A lot of these religions back in the day were based on paganism, right? And then you start looking into the occult, and then it's all these labels that we put on things. So I have to agree with the part where you said, like, all these different types of paranormal. Is it all the same?
Absolutely. Oh, can I just come back? You mentioned fear. And sure. you also we also talked about a couple of poltergeist cases that had children of a certain age. I have found very few poltergeist cases, both researched by others and ones I've researched, that did not have a very, very strong element of stress prior to the poltergeist events happening.
True.
Now, it's kind of traditionally been connected with pubescent boys and girls, but to which I would say it's not the fact that they're that particular age, because surely adolescence is one of the most stressful times of your life.
Absolutely.
It's likewise, you have cases that start to happen shortly after a death in the family. Now, that's obviously a terribly stressful thing.
I've just gone through it in January
15th. My deepest condolences on that.
Thank you. But I will tell you this. I'm going to stop you there just real quick. Please hold that thought. I can tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt that, like, the Thursday night show, I thought it was my cat out in the hallway. My dog was right there where she always is at the end of the bed. My co-host was here. We hadn't gone live yet, and I can vouch for it. Now, I'm not saying it's paranormal, but there was nobody else home. And my door handle started going doo, 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 doo. I've had strange things. Now, do I know if it's my son? I feel it's my son. It's nothing spooky. My older son actually messaged me during that show in particular. This was about a week or two ago, and said, "Mom, I know you're live, but can you message me afterwards? There's been crazy stuff happening all day long here, and they don't get paranormal activity either." Now, is it my son? I don't know. There's many different reasons. We can't just jump to the paranormal. Please continue your thought, but I wanted to add that because I have had some strange things, not scary, but strange and very obvious things that I have found. Now, am I making that something paranormal, or maybe thinking it's my son because I'm grieving? I'm open to that, but they certainly have been strange, I can tell you that.
Oh, it's nobody can be sure at this stage. Anyone that says they've got all the answers, it's just a question of.
I don't have all the answers. That's why I love these kind of conversations. Please continue your thought.
I'll give you. The example I love is I mean, not quite so obvious, but it's in the top 5 stress factors.
Okay.
Is moving house.
Yes.
So
Renovations.
Moved into a haunted house, or is your stress haunting the house?
I have to agree with you. I have to agree with you.
It's I mean, one of the cases I mean, the actual title of my poltergeist book is Poltergeist: A New Investigation into Destructive Haunting, including the cage, witches, prisons, and Osyths. Far too long a title. My apologies. No
apologies.
No, 2 reasons it was that long. It was partly a play on a very famous poltergeist book called Poltergeist: An Investigation into Destructive Hauntings by Colin Wilson, and they also added including the Black Monk of Pontefract. So it was a bit of a play on that, but it's also because there's a good chunk of a chapter based on my research into the cage, witches, prisons, and Osyths.
I was just going to ask you about the cage, because I know of the cage. I have seen shows on the cage, so please continue.
Somebody has actually just a YouTuber who is actually genuinely interested in the paranormal has just bought the cage.
Okay.
It was. It had somebody totally uninterested for a few years, and now somebody has bought it. So watch this space. I don't know what their intentions are, but I hope they will be interesting. But anyway, the cage is a oldish house, which was partially converted from a village holding cell, which were quite common in the 17th and 18th and 19th centuries. A lady called Vanessa Mitchell moved into it shortly after she became pregnant and then an unmarried mother. She was going through a stressful time in her life, and all kinds of things started happening, from the occasional apparition, but only one that could be possibly construed as a possible witch. The rest were actually of gentlemen in modern clothes, to being pushed, things falling, objects flying. She did have tenants in at one point, so there's a fairly wide witness pool, which is always a good thing. What makes a cage so interesting, apart from the fact it is the house move into a house that has a large history plaque outside it saying this is the place where Ursula Kemp and her 11 disciples were held in the 16th century. Now, that history plaque's been there for decades. Nobody's quite sure who put it up. It's nearly like saying, beware all those who enter here. What makes the cage fascinating is it's actually an early 19th century property, a very small cottage. The lockup is probably early 19th century as well. They didn't build lockups to last in the 16th century. They were just ad hoc buildings, if indeed they built them at all. The story of Ursula Kemp is quite true and quite historically recorded. She was a wise woman who was accused by the wrong people, and her and 11 others probably came from St Osyth, went to Chelmsford, got tried, and 2 of them got hung. That much is true. The chances of them staying the night in this tiny little holding cell that wasn't built until the early 19th century is virtually zero. However, there is this plaque, which was probably put on, my guess is during the 1970s, when the builder converted the premises and attached the cage building to the main dwelling. That's just a guess.
Okay.
But whoever put that plaque up is nearly priming people to the fear factor. And once somebody goes in with that sort of expectation, it's just and has just moved house and is going through a lot in their life. It's just possible that mixture of emotions triggers off real paranormal events. Because again, there was no communicative entity in the cage. There was lots of random happenings being pushed. Some in particular areas of the house. I wish when we'd investigated it in depth, we'd managed to get a very sophisticated electromagnetic or geomagnetic sort of survey done. We unfortunately didn't, because it would be interesting to see if there was any environmental factors that might have added to it as well. It's also interesting that just across the road there's a place called St Osyth's Priory, which has a very strong reputation for being haunted, although it's privately owned now, so it's difficult to sort of quantify it in modern terms. And just across from the cage is also a very welcoming hostelry called the King's Head, which is thankfully just reopened after being shut for a period of time, which also has a reputation for being haunted. It kind of makes me think whether there's environmental factors possibly at hand. But that's kind of a great example of where the fear factor might put you into a state of mind where paranormal events become more likely. And as I say, let's set aside whether it's an outside agent or just a special state of consciousness at this stage. But nearly all poltergeist cases do have a stress trigger. I can't think of one that doesn't.
I can't disagree with you. And even when I look at it from the perspective, and I'm taking it from, and I never worked as a psychic medium. I've had paranormal and strange things happen to me my entire life. I'm going to be 60 in August. And as a nurse in particular, working especially in critical care and palliative care, some of the things I've seen and I've witnessed, I've got no explanation for it. I would not be doing what I'm doing today had I not gone through the experience I went through in my previous home. And it would have taken something as large as what we went through for me to be doing what I'm doing, because I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to go back to medical school. I can't disagree with some of the points that you said. Hang on, I'm just going to say hello. I want to say, Kathy or Michelle, thank you for sharing about your nephew sending tons of positive energy and prayers, and hopefully he'll get the help that he needs. In the comments, Kathy Hanley Little is here, and my cousin Michelle is here too. So she sent hearts. I was writing down thoughts as you were talking, because I can't disagree. See, now some of the things that you've mentioned about these cases, David and I have the thing at the foot of the bed on Thursday nights. And David has gone into some notorious places. He is in North Carolina in the US. I'm in Canada. And he's gone into places where the lore and the story precede the investigation. And I wasn't with him, but I believe him to be a truthful person. He has told stories of going into places and actually having conversations with, he says, the spirit or whoever the legend is about, and them saying, no, that's not what the story is. It's almost become like the game of telephone. I don't know what you might call it over in the UK. A large group of people in a circle. One person says the words pickles and whispers it in that person's ear, and it goes around the circle. By the time it comes to the last person, the word they've heard is nowhere near or clear to what the original word was, pickles. So when you've got that sign up there and the legend and the lore and the story that precedes it, I have to agree with you. But I have some questions for you, and not just a conversation, because I can't disagree. Like I tell people all the time, I don't know everything. I can only give you from my own experiences, my own research, talking to other people, connecting with what I believe to be spirit or guides. And I don't know everything. But how and what do you think of then when we get EVPs? I was telling you about I have two really not planned, called in at the last minute to my friend Jason Bland's show, Paranormal Soup. And he was doing what they would call collectively once a month ITC night, or intertrans communication. And I can tell you, the one from 2017, that both of them were Jason's Halloween shows. And the one in 2018, we were on the same network. We had 84 hours straight of paranormal live radio. Each one of us hosts had a show, and I called in. But the one in 2017, I remember it so clearly. It was a Linkin Park band, the memorial concert for Chester Bennington. And I was watching it. And it was my time, because Jason's show, for people listening, I give him a shout out all the time, because he's given us a lot of help. Not so much anymore, but when I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on. His show is Sunday nights live from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Anyways, I went, oh crap, I missed Jason's Halloween show. And I thought, oh, I got 5 minutes left, I'll call in. And I did live. Okay. So there's a gentleman in the back, and with no disrespect to him, he would give me a bit of a hard time because I used to call in every week. I don't even know if Jason still has the videos on his channel, but you could see some stuff going on in the background behind me. I have got some unexplainable pictures too. I haven't forgot about the question about the EVPs, but I was just going to mention the guy in the background. He told me he didn't believe in anything negative. He didn't believe in any of this kind of stuff. Well, you can tell by this guy's face. He's pretty scared because he could not get the device to turn off, and that none of this was planned. It was live. So back to my question after that big, long little bit of a story. What do you think happens with EVPs? How do you think they get picked up?
I'll be honest, actually. I don't talk much about EVPs in my books because I've rarely we've been sent quite a few EVPs, mm-hmm. and most of them, there's two types of EVPs. There's the straightforward ones, picked up on tape or tape. It shows my age. I'm actually 2 years older than you. But
you don't look it.
Neither do you.
We'll have to do a show on how we keep ourselves looking useful.
I am. I've been to Transylvania 7 times.
I'm going to go there. I can't wait. I told you I was going to have lots to talk to you about.
We'll go on to Transylvania in a second. Anyway, EVPs. there's the straightforward ones where they're picked up in a normal recording device. I must admit, anything I've been sent, and there may well be exceptions, I can't make out what they're saying until until the the reportee tells me what they think they're saying, and I have to discard that because it's it's little whispers and what have you, and if I can't make it out without being prompted, you obviously have the possibility of audio pareidolia, for want of a better expression.
Yep.
And these days, of course, you've got these spirit boxes, which are, as far as I can work out, either randomly generate words or randomly look for radio stations,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of got so many other possible explanations. Absolutely. Unless you got a message that was 100% directed to you, such as my best mate Joe Blogs is standing behind me in clear English. It's I mean the messages I've had produced from those sort of things are simply like, I'm lonely, or I'm yeah. So I am actually out and out open-minded, skeptical about EVPs. However, if you have a good one, do feel free to send it to me.
I'm looking for one right now that's not very long. Here, it's only a second or two. Because Carrie Lynn Shellhorn,
I won't give a yes or no just hearing it here, but I might say interesting.
Okay, but this is on video, and I'll send it to you so we don't take it, because this is flying by. We won't have time, but I will send it to you. I'll send you the link to mine. Mine is not caught on the recording video. You can't Jason's Skype wasn't working, because some of the things you can see me on Skype when I'm calling in. Usually we got a few people here that aren't here, but when they're in the chat, they will vouch for it. They were there live that night when they saw what happened, and many times when I would call in. But it's live on camera. You can see Jason sitting there. The gentleman in the background is in a different US state, but he's running the device, and it's I don't want to say that it's a word bank, because there's no word bank that came through on this. This was a clear voice. Same as what, like I said, Carrie Lynn and I had another EVP too when she was on my show. And it's usually my audience that picks it up. I don't even hear it. Yeah, actually, we have someone, I don't know if he'll get, and you got to call it commitment. He's over in Sri Lanka, so he may wake up because soon. He always jokes that I have a Bigfoot in my back, in my closet, because I'm in my bedroom where I'm podcasting, because I do get some weird sounds and stuff coming through. So it's not planned, it's live. It's not like I'm saying, okay, we're going to do the Estes method right now, or we are going to take an EVP. This is just like you and I just sitting here talking, and it's like I say, the one I was going to say, I'll send it to you at the end of the show. It's Carrie Lynn. It's not words, but when you hear it, it's like, what the heck is that? And you can see the video live because I clipped it, and you hear it coming through. Like, what is it? But Julie, Julie.
I'd actually classify that as not as an EVP, but as a potential paranormal sound, if you like. I don't doubt.
Carrie Lynn.
I mean, you have growling sounds and so on that can be recorded and are quite common in poltergeist cases. When I was talking about EVPs, I was talking about playing a tape for 3 or 4 hours and then listening back to it, and trying to make sense of the little hissing sounds, or possibly picking up a radio station and then saying
that's audio pareidolia. I have to agree with you.
Yeah. But I mean, the I do believe potential paranormal noises can be caught on tape, so it's possible you have a
Carrie Lynn and
potential.
her guests didn't hear it. And it was so weird because they were talking like you and I are. And normally there's not somebody in the background, but I do help other people with producing with their shows. I'm a backup for the network in case, because we eventually all have to know how to produce our own shows. So Michelle DeRoche, and the funny part about this, talk about a small world, our Travel Channel Paranormal Survivor episode, just my partner and I were interviewed for 6 hours and they made an episode. We had no idea what they were going to put in there. They do use two very intuitive people that are very well versed in the paranormal to comment on the episode. One of them is Michelle DeRoche. I didn't meet her. My partner didn't meet her. She's now my station manager and a good friend of mine on the network. It has a show on here. Doesn't live in the same city, anything like that. It's just the way things work, right? Anyways, you said something that I'm very excited about because I've seen a little bit of this about your book as well. So you spent some time in Transylvania. I would love to hear your thoughts on vampires, what's going on with that, because my previous co-host used to identify as part of the vampire community years ago.
Do you mean the Gothic community, or do you mean the vampire community? Do you mean people that actually
blood
enjoy the taste of blood? Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
There's an interview with me from her on our previous network. That's the 84 hours of the Spookathon, and her gas conked out on her at the last minute. And we used to work together quite a bit. I would be sort of more what you would call the light worker, and she worked more sort of with dark, like she collected haunted items. I can tell you I've seen some weird stuff happen at her house talking to her on camera. And she was part of the vamp. She ran around biting people on their necks. Anyways, long story short.
Anyway, I can guarantee this is not blood.
Not blood. Well, no, but she did. I never asked her because I figured if she wanted to tell me, she would tell me. But I did have questions, so I said, "Hello, you got a built-in guest here." So I interviewed her and asked her many questions. This was quite a few years ago. I think it's still on YouTube. If I can find it, I'd be happy to share. But please, I'm going to stop talking. I want to hear your thoughts and everything.
But anyway, I'll tell you a little. And it's gone 11 here. I will tell you a little tale about vampires, and then try to connect it up with my book on poltergeist and my book on one Big Box of Paranormal Tricks. Now, some years back, you mentioned at the start I was a member of the Ghost Club, which is exactly what it says it is in the tin. We do some investigations, but we are in some ways a social club for people who are interested in the paranormal. It's been going since 1864. I'm not a founder member.
I hope not.
We'd been to most of the interesting places in the UK, and just around 1998, 99, we started to want to look further afield for interesting places. So we actually got on the internet and tried to look out to people that were doing serious tours around Transylvania and Dracula. And we were lucky enough to run into somebody called Nikolai Paduaru, who's sadly since passed on, who probably invented the entire genre. He was actually quite high in the tourist ministry during the Ceausescu, communist dictatorship area. So, but he was a fascinating figure who was an atheist, or thought he was an atheist, but he kind of believed in reincarnation, would call stray dogs, sir, sometimes, just in case they were one of his. And he had a fascination for the entire range of the paranormal. When we went to Transylvania, we got taken to all the normal, interesting places, which isn't actually Bram Castle, which everyone sees in the sort of photographs. The real Dracula was actually in a place called Purinari Castle, which is a 1,200 step climb and is absolutely knackering. So, but over and above all that, he took us to some universities where we spoke to some people, some Romanians academics who were studying Curlian photography and so on.
Ooh.
And we kind of got a whole new outlook as to how a culture who we'd only just connected up with, because obviously the Iron Curtain only fell in the mid-late 1980s, kind of dealt with the paranormal. We also, after that, went to the helped organise the World Dracula Congress there, which was one of his sidelines, and managed to persuade a certain Ingrid Pitt to participate. I basically just sent her an email, and she said, "Sounds interesting. I'll come." Are you aware of Ingrid Pitt? She was kind of Christopher Lee's sidekick in a lot of the vampire movies, but I'm sure a lot of you readers listeners will be. But anyway, over and above all that vampire fun, I kind of got to know quite a lot about how the Romanians and other Eastern Europeans kind of dealt with the paranormal and the kind of terminology they used. And what's actually clear, if you look at a lot of historic vampire cases, they make lots of noises. They might growl a bit. They might clatter their pots and pans. They behave just like poltergeists.
Oh.
Now, why don't we have vampires in Western Europe or the USA? Now, the thing about vampires is they're supposed to be evil. Let's set aside whether they are or not. And they're supposed to be incorruptible. That's the two absolute must things about vampires. Now, in the Christian Orthodox Church, incorruptible bodies are indeed deemed evil. So the entire eastern side of Europe, who are basically Christian Orthodox, have a culture that identifies evil with incorruptible. Now, go across the divide to the Western Catholic side, and you have 300 incorruptibles that are actually saints. So we could never have strange events and talk about them as being, I mean, because we always think the strange and unexplained is evil, we could never talk about them as vampires because by definition, we'd be putting our saints in the same category. So my thought is vampires are just a cultural way of describing an unexplained paranormal poltergeist type event. There's quite a lot of cases going right up to the 1930s in Serbia where a vampire case was reported in the hotel, which basically just consisted of tables and chairs being thrown across the room. But that's their terminology. Let's respect it. But when you actually cut through all the folklore, most of what is described as vampire is just our way of we say demonic, they say vampire, and
potato semantics.
Exactly. I don't like to, I think I prefer vampire to demonic, because that's got all kinds of such deep belief connotations. Whether or not it's true is kind of irrelevant. If you knock on somebody's door
Mm-hmm.
who's having strange paranormal type events happening and say, "Hello, I'm a demonologist,"
Mm-hmm.
you're going to hit the fear factor big time, and probably, if you're unlucky, make it worse. And I don't doubt there's people that have perfectly valid beliefs that there might be evil entities. I'm not even going to talk about whether they're true or not, but if you put that on your calling card, it's quite possible you make the situation worse. So I kind of prefer the Romanian vampire hunters, in some ways are far more romantic anyway. So basically, I, I spent a lot. I spent 6 or 7 times in Romania, some
Mm-hmm.
educational trips, some trying to promote vampire tourism. I actually got one or two tour companies interested in on the behalf of the people I was working with, and sometimes just for the sheer folklore, which is absolutely fascinating. And I apparently,
No,
according
I'm
to you at least,
smiling.
look quite good. Look quite good for my age. So maybe there is something in that.
Are you a vampire and you're trying to just kind of lead us off the trail? No, just joking.
Maybe when I spent the night at the Dracula Castle Hotel, who's
Yes.
actually built by one of Nikolai's colleagues, who since called himself Baron Masugia, again in the upper echelons of the Communist Tourist Ministry. There is actually a Castle Dracula Hotel in the Borgo Pass, because, of course, the Borgo Pass has no connection with the real Dracula at all.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone went there and were really disappointed, so they thought, why not build a castle there they can spend the night in? It's got dungeons and it's got a graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Dungeons are fake. The
Mm-hmm.
graveyard is real, because in remote parts of Romania, there's quite a lot of family graveyards, and there just happened to be a disused one nearby. It's also got a nunnery just over the road, which is just a pure bit of synchronistic genius. So it makes you wonder if there was something in it after all, and why did Stoker choose the Borgo Pass? But he only looked at a map. But it's a wonderful place. I would thoroughly recommend your listeners to go there, immerse yourself in folklore, and maybe run across one or two real paranormal events as well. But you see where this took me to say, every time you look at a different paranormal tradition, it is the same sort of thing, which is why I wrote a book called One Big Box of Paranormal Tricks, ?
Mm-hmm.
It's not saying that all paranormal is trickery. It's saying that should most of the paranormal be put in one big box?
I don't think you can.
It's got a question mark afterwards. I don't say this is the answer, but I believe there's a heck of a lot of it is overlaps with the other. I mean, certainly you can't put real UFO experiences. Well, strictly speaking, they wouldn't be strictly speaking, they wouldn't be paranormal, because if there is life in another planet, it will in time be explained by science. But there's a lot of crossover areas that have lots of poltergeist stroke, ghostly stroke, UFO experiences. I mean, for example, when I suspect some of your listeners at least have heard of Rendlesham Forest, where used to have an American air base, UFO seen over 3 days in Christmas late 1980s. That's also a place which has had quite a lot of poltergeist activity. Is also a place where very occasionally something known as a shug monkey is seen. It's apparently 8 foot tall and looks like a baboon. The closest thing you could get to a British Bigfoot. However, Rendlesham Forest isn't that large, so this is a paranormal sighting. If it is indeed a sighting, there's no chance of there being a regular a regular 8 foot tall baboon that we haven't spotted, unlike in the wilderness of Alaska and
yes, still haven't found out what Nessie is. Yes.
Yes. But Rendlesham Forest is also very close to some 7th century Anglo-Saxon very famous burial mounds known as Sutton Hoo, where lots of gold was found in the 1930s. So it kind of seems to be a place that a lot of people were attracted to, and a lot of people have strange things happening. I'm not gonna say the UFOs were not standard UFOs. But it's just possible that in some way all the stuff's interlinked. And again, it's a place I'd love to take geomagnetic and electromagnetic readings on, because I wonder if somehow that might be the key to it.
I will tell you that the owner of our network, Joe Montaldo, he has UFO Undercover, The Centralist, and we're broadcasting out of his studio in his own home in New Orleans. He has done a 20-plus year study on Rh negative blood, green eyes, and red hair, because apparently up to 70,000 years ago, those genetic DNA attributes did not exist in the human genome. So where did they come from? So he has been doing a study of people that claim to have either seen UFOs or UAPs or whatever they're calling them nowadays, or have had claim to have had been abducted, whatever it may be. Now, I don't have any of those attributes. My mother does. My mother laughs at people like myself that do what we do, wholeheartedly. I am telling you, and when I was just talking to someone that's writing a book that had asked if I could share some of my paranormal experiences, because they're writing about the activity in the area that I live in. And some of the stories I started to tell her, I said, I know you don't know me from a hole in the ground, but I swear on my son's heads, I am telling you the truth. Like the first time when we moved into our old home, but to go along with your theory, we moved. It was a home that was built from the ground up. Nothing had been built there before. I knew nothing about the paranormal. I knew nothing about 3 a.m. I don't believe in that anyways, because I jokingly say it's 3 a.m. anywhere around the world at any given time. But for about 4 or 5 months, every night at 3 a.m., I woke up completely unable to breathe. Take a breath in, take a breath out. There was no, I think you have over in the UK is at 111. We have 911 over here. We had nothing like that back in the day. So my father would be scooping me up, taking me in the car, racing to the emergency, get about a block away, and I could breathe. They finally diagnosed me, they said, with asthma. Gave me medication, and I haven't had that problem since. I can tell you as a nurse, and I remember it very vividly, I was terrified to go to sleep that summer. It was not an asthma attack. As a nurse, I know what one looks like. My children both have had severe asthma. I couldn't breathe. What the heck was going on with that? I have video of weird, strange things in the sky that are not a plane. Oh, Julie left already. Julie Jean Bassett, that was in the chat. A full moon, I think it was in November. She had taken a picture and said, what do you think of this? And my partner, because he's still a big skeptic, and it's good to have a healthy dose of skepticism. I believe that myself. He goes, oh, that's a lens flare. I go, no, it's not. Lens flares are white. He goes, I'm telling you, it's a lens flare. So I said, can you send me video? And I started to video of the moon. And sure enough, he was right. So I told him, you're right. But then you can hear me in the voice message to Julie going, holy crap, what the heck is this thing? Because I was voice messaging back because I talked to so many people in the daytime. And if she was still here, she'd vouch. There was this red flickering light going all like it was not flying like a plane. Now, am I saying it's a U? Well, it was unidentified flying, whatever the heck it was. And I've got quite a few videos like that. I got missing time where I just blinked. I've lived in the city my whole life. And an hour and a half later, I kid you not, I opened my eyes to my phone ringing, my partner Dahl saying, "Where the heck are you?" I only should have been gone 3 minutes. And I was miles away from my house, my car in the opposite direction, in front of a building I've never seen before. And I was even surprised I got service. Now, you don't know me, so you could think, oh, sure, she's full of crap. She's just telling a story for a radio show. I am telling you, I couldn't make that up if I tried.
I don't doubt your story for a second. It's just trying to make
Explain.
sense of what it
agree.
was. I'll tell you. Once upon a time, before I even went to Transylvania, I might give some insight into the abduction things. I actually joined a past life regression group. That was when I was active with the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena. Now, I started off as a possible subject, but they quickly got bored with that because, in the same way, I think probably about 5% of people are psychically tuned, and it's probably a fact that only about 5% of people are really good hypnotist subjects. If you ever go to a stage show, what they normally do is try something with the whole audience, and a lot of people it doesn't work at all. The ones that do work, they bring on stage and they do their little routine on. I was not one of those people, so nothing better to do. They actually trained me to hypnotize people under very careful supervision. In fact, I still no. That's just something I picked up along the way. But having seen it from both angles, as a very bad subject, I did get into very shallow trance. I could see in that relaxed state there was an urge to go kind of please this soothing voice and maybe to give the soothing voice what you thought the soothing voice thought they wanted. We actually took people on pure fantasy trips, and they came up with some wonderful, somebody turned into a mermaid once and so on. And I think there is a possibility, setting aside what UFOs are, I think there's a possibility that these regressions into genuine missing periods of time can work in such a way as to subconsciously give the hypnotist what they want. Now, let me go a little bit deeper into that, because we did do some in between conjuring up mermaids and what have you. We did do some serious past life regression work, and one of the subjects we had, unfortunately, just before I started, actually, was a particularly good subject who went into various past lives. In one of the lives, he lived in Cardiff and went to Cardiff University just before World War One. And he joined the army, and he unfortunately died during World War One. He came out with lots of names, including his own, and he also regiment and officers of the regiment and what have you.
Mhm.
All those facts were checked and found not to be accurate because there was fairly good records, of who was who and what regiment in the First World War. However, he also described how he walked through Cardiff from his his accommodation to his college, and even though he'd never been to Cardiff, he got that absolutely spot on.
Mhm.
However, the hypnotist it was either the hypnotist or the one of the people in the room knew Cardiff like the back of his hand. And I'm not saying he was prompting him in any way, shape, or form, but it struck me as far more likely that in these special states of mind, you maybe suddenly have the power to get ESP. I mean, this subject, his best ever past life was a chap called Sir Dick the Saxon, who lived in the 11th century and fought in the Battle of Hastings.
Mhm.
You see, they always do exciting things, his past life. So he died at the Battle of
Mine
Hastings. Well,
didn't.
okay,
Yeah.
that's fair enough.
And then I
But
got to ask you about children because I've studied NDEs for 40 years, 40 plus years, but I'm extremely fascinated by children. And I know many people that their children have even said, you're, I want my mummy. And you can look into this. There's been thousands of documented cases. There's a child over in India that solved his murder from his previous life and shown them where, and this is documented. This is not legend and lore. How to,
no, there are some quite good. There are some uh, well documented cases. I don't know that one. There's certainly. Oh, I'm trying to remember the sub-religion. I don't think it's Alawites. There's certainly a Middle East um, sect that totally believe in the afterlife and have quite a lot of well-documented cases. My big apologies for not being able to name this
that's okay.
particular sect, but against that, they this particular sect stopped. It's not a evangelical sect; it's a closed sect. They stopped introducing people into it. I think in the 12th century,
Mhm.
and they have about only 700,000 or 800,000 members, mainly in the Middle East and all over the world. And they are quite closely intertwined. So it is possible that to some extent everybody to some extent knows everybody else. And some of their cases have been quite carefully dissected and not looked quite as strong as they first did. I'm not saying they've been falsified, but that's just a sort of counterbalance.
Mhm.
But if you just let me
Let's
talk
talk
about.
about your book then. Okay, so with your book, because we're running out of time and I could talk
Oh,
to you
okay.
for hours. I love it. Look, Julia Evans.
I just wanted to quickly finish with Serdic
I'm sorry.
because
Go ahead.
the real fun bit here um is he was not an AA, fought in the Battle of Hastings and had an interesting life. He suddenly started doing automatic drawing.
Yeah.
And the guy whose past life was Serdic had no drawing talent whatsoever. Came out with some wonderful drawings done at high speed and under hypnosis, which appeared to be fairly accurate. But the fun punchline is so you've got Aleister Crowley in the state of trance, who is writing a whole gospel in 2 hours. You've got Rosemary Brown, the spiritualist, who is writing concertos just off the top of her head when in a trance. And then you've got Serdic the Saxon in a trance, suddenly doing some amazing automatic drawings.
Mhm.
are they really different skills?
Are they really? So, what are you saying, that they're all?
I'm saying if you can get yourself into a special trance-like state, we may find that not an awful lot of supernormal and paranormal skills are suddenly possible, and possibly these skills can either be caused by stress or more controlled ways by the traditional getting into a trance, be it a shaman, be it a medium, be it an occultist, and so on.
I don't go in a trance when I do mediumship. I know my friend Carrie Lynn doesn't. I know some people do.
Yeah, I was talking about the mediumistic. I didn't say all mediums went
Yeah,
into
okay.
trances, but
I just wanted to
yeah,
throw the monkey wrench in here because it's an interesting perspective.
absolutely.
Interesting perspective. And
Mm.
including, I can't disagree, because again, if we break everything down to energy, I believe there is a universal consciousness. And you take the example of monkeys on a secluded island, and there supposedly is a case. I can't cite the case for you. You can look it up, or I'll see if I can find it. They all of a sudden, researchers are noticing these monkeys are doing a skill that they've never observed in any of the monkey populations. Lo and behold, within 6 months, and none of the monkeys have left the island, they start seeing this skills all of a sudden being done amongst other monkey populations. Now, is it a repressed skill that came out? Is it universal consciousness? What is it? And I don't have the answers either. I think it's an interesting perspective.
There's a fascinating guy called Rupert Sheldrake, who totally, you may have got it from a different supporter, but he totally believes in that theory. I mean, he's got doctorships and PhDs and so on. He's actually speaking to the SPR next month. So if you've got any questions you want to ask him, I'll definitely pass them on. But I mean, if you Google him afterwards, he is absolutely saying what you are saying. It is a well-established possible theory in the paranormal. I'm not saying my second book especially is what I'd call a meditation. It's just trying to get people to look at the paranormal in a different way and look for possible connections between phenomena. It's not dogmatic, and I'm sure if I've got any truth in it, I've only skimmed it.
I can't disagree with anything you said tonight. I can't.
Okay.
Even David and I know I keep bringing it up, but we have these kind of conversations on the Thursday night show. We don't have guests on. People in the audience give us our thoughts. And David is of the mind that you are. That one thing I really wanted to ask you too, like I know it said you were on Japanese TV, and I've noticed as well, to contribute to some of the things you're saying, that like when you see supposed cases of paranormal activity, say over in Japan, right? And I can't tell you how many I've heard about or seen. The girl supposedly from The Ring, and then we've got the chupacabra and the rake, and really weird stuff that seems to always be showing up, say in South America. There's all these global locations. What is it, and why? Why only in one area are we seeing this stuff? Is it because people believe in it? They're talking about it, and are they manifesting it? I don't know. So many questions.
I'm not an expert in the Japanese paranormal. The extent of my television appearance was a Japanese film company coming to the UK, and us showing them what we would do in a haunted pub, and an apparently well-known actress in Japan jumping out of her skin when we were down in the cellar. And somebody trod on the trapdoor in the street above because the cellars, and of course there was a almighty thud. It undoubtedly made for great Japanese TV.
Yes.
I was overdubbed. I just hope they gave me a decent accent. I don't know. You can actually find that one on YouTube.
Okay.
If anyone speaks Japanese, it might be they might have done a comedic slant. I don't know.
You
But
know,
they seemed quite intrigued,
you
and
know what? I think that's funny, but you know what, John? I think we need books like yours to give us, because there's nothing wrong with debunking. I'm a big proponent of it and having a healthy dose of, I'm not calling you skeptic, I'm saying for myself, skepticism, or looking at the other side of the coin, because you are absolutely right. The points that you've made, like, and again, like David, the word demon, for example, that comes from religious dogma. So what?
It comes from a religion. I wouldn't call it. I mean,
Those are my words. Those are
yeah,
my words.
yeah. I mean, I respect most
I do too.
religions, so long as they don't want to kill people of other religions, and I do tend to get a bit short-tempered with them. But yeah, I mean, it is very heavily laden into calling something evil that we don't understand. And yeah, I mean, the last thing you want to think is you've got a portal to hell in your bathroom or a demon under the stairs, which certainly in some of the TV programs, that's a terminology they come out with. And I can't imagine anyone having unusual events in their house feeling reassured after being told that.
I'm writing a book. I'm writing 3 books, and one of them is about a paranormal experience. I wasn't the only one. My family wasn't the only one. There are other people that have experienced strange, unusual phenomena, including one of my, I know I won't say his name because I didn't ask for his permission, but one of my son's friends, when he was a teenager, didn't believe in any of this. And he thought my previous German Shepherd I had was around him. All of a sudden, you heard him jump and scream. He says he thought it was the dog. We were not right beside him. We were maybe about 5 feet away, 1.5 meters, maybe almost 2 meters away from him, still on the same floor. He was white as a sheet, and he said something grabbed my leg. He goes, I thought it was the dog. He never came back to our house ever again. And he doesn't believe in that kind of stuff. There was nothing around him. I've known this kid. He was pretty truthful. I can't say that something grabbed him, but knowing what a skeptic he was, it was interesting to hear what he thought he had experienced.
What did he think he had experienced?
He thought he said something grabbed it was his ankle. He was right beside the couch.
But he didn't suddenly believe in something or think it
He
was.
didn't say, I believe in ghosts. He just knew there was nothing there. He described it as something grabbing his ankle. And he looked around thinking, was the dog? There was nobody around him. He was just kind of standing next to the sofa or the couch, waiting while I was catching up. One of my oldest son's friends, and I and my son were talking about a few things, and he was always sort of a quieter type boy, and he was white as a sheet after it happened. And he never did come back. Did he say, you got ghosts in your house and I'm a believer? No, but it certainly made him uncomfortable enough that he did not come back. I don't know. And he was not a believer. And those were his exact words. Something grabbed my ankle. I thought it was the dog. He goes, and I noticed when I was looking around me, and the dog was actually standing closer to us by the front door. Don't know what it is. We are running out of time. John, I could talk to you for hours about this. I've been so happy you stayed up late to talk about this. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I would love to have you back again. I don't know if you've got other books coming out. You want to talk more about your book? I know we had these conversations, but I'm hoping that it'll give people the perspective to look up your book, because you know what? I think it's very important that you've written about this topic. Not enough people do, with one big box of paranormal tricks, ? So where can people get a hold of you? Or if they want to talk more about this, where can they buy your books, more importantly? What have you got coming up?
I've got a few talks and what have you during the year in England, but for the people your side of the Atlantic, I mean, the
whole world's listening, John.
The books are widely available in Amazon Canada, Amazon America, Amazon UK. I think they're out in Amazon Australia now.
Okay.
The two books we were talking about, they're far too long titles, but I'll give it a try. Poltergeist, a new investigation into destructive hauntings, and a more recent book which kind of takes my thoughts on poltergeist and what the paranormal is all about a bit further, is One Big Box of Paranormal Tricks. If that wasn't enough, from ghosts to poltergeists to the theory of one paranormal power. I must shorten my titles. It's actually part of a series out by 6 books called Paranormal Perspectives, which is basically different people's perspectives on the paranormal. So I'd also Google the title, and you'll find some other interesting books coming out on that particular on different topics of the paranormal by mediums and all angles. I believe certain Mr. Gavin Davis, who was listening earlier, may have his own coming out quite soon.
Oh, good. I get to have him back on. Hopefully, he's so busy. I had him on. It was a couple of years ago. It's been 6 years almost. This summer, in beginning of July, I've been on this network. Love this place. So, you guys, if you're enjoying what you were seeing and listening to, hearing, stay tuned for Dolly Saffron and Preston Dennett coming up next with the Light Gate. Faith-inspired transformation. Darn, I just missed you. That's okay. There's always a replay. Probably be even on John's profile or your page, because you streamed it there tonight on Facebook. Anywhere where podcasts and talk radio are carried, our replays will be there, as well as on my YouTube channel, the network's YouTube channel, all over the place. So I hope to have John back again. Maybe time's going by so quick, but who knows? Have you got any other books coming up at all, John?
No, actually, I kind of got to the stage where I better do. I better visit a few more sites. I think I'll probably spend the year actually gathering some data and coming up with some new ideas.
I'd love for you to come to North America.
Just have to ask the SPR if they can give me a small grant.
Yes, exactly. Well, I want to tell all of you, if you want to get a hold of me, I do psychic and mediumship readings. I also do crystal Reiki, which involves balancing your chakras, working with your energy field. I also do therapeutic touch, which doesn't touch you. Also, I do teaching and mentoring. And I'm going to start working on doing some animal communication as well. So you can get a hold of me right now at the moment at facebook.com/theangelrock. As I've told you before, my BFF, Leanne Clark, and she's in Atlanta, Georgia. I call her the Crystal Wizardress. You can find her under the Crystal Architect. She does Akashic Records as well. She's a channeler. We are working on our first course. It's looking like maybe the end of June, beginning of July. Sorry, guys, just with everything going on at the beginning of the new year, but we're getting it out there. I should have a domain name. But in the meantime, fastest, easiest way on facebook.com/theangelrock. You can also get just reach out on social media. Usually Messenger is the easiest and quickest, but I have a platform under the Angel Rock or Lorilei Potvin on any platform you can practically think of. Don't forget my 2 groups at Paranormal University for all things paranormal, the Angel Rocker Tribe for more things spiritual. Don't forget the thing at the foot of the bed, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with David and I. Will be back with a new episode. We also have a group like that by that same name on Facebook. You can post pictures, experiences. Maybe there's some show topics y'all want to talk about. Whatever it may be, you can post in there as well. Don't forget to, I'll be back next week with the Angel Rock again, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have Mike Fiorito coming on, multi-author, haven't had him on in a long time. I think he's got something coming up with a new ufology book too. So love y'all. Thank you again, John, for everything. I hope you have a great night.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned for Dolly and Preston next. I really appreciate it.